I think there's no bigger, more obvious, more blatant ignoring of the most vulnerable segment of our society, which is the elderly and those who cannot go to work and earn because of circumstances. The total pension budget has remained around 9,000 crores. Since 2007, there has been no increase of the Social Security pension budget by the central government. And even indexing to inflation, which should be the most minimal thing, the result of that is that that very small number of pensioners considered part of a very obsolete and outdated BPL list are getting 200 and 300 rupees a month per month, about 7 rupees a day, which is a crime. It's no longer just a cruel joke, but it is really a crime. If India says in any way at all that it is moving towards being one of the largest economies in the world and a global economic superpower, this is a national shame. There are other areas in which people's rights have been secured, which includes things like employment and food. But as far as pensions are concerned, and these concern the 94% of our working unorganized sector population, which had no recourse to any kind of economic social security, including pensions. They have worked all their lives, they've contributed all their lives, but they are not being even acknowledged. Many of them are completely out because the list is so small, and many of them in crores just get 200 rupees and 300 rupees from the central government, which results in many states them not getting access to very much more. We have, in contrast, some of the states have started acknowledging this. And even though the central government has a centrally sponsored scheme for pensions, which says that the percentage that what the central government will give should be matched with the state. If you can imagine that the state will match 200 rupees with 200 rupees, it will still drive huge segments of our population to destitution. That is really an uncaring state, an irresponsible state, and one of the most glaring omissions in this budget, in every year's budget, and even this year's budget, one sees little hope of this being addressed in any substantial manner. Aadhaar network was built upon the mandatory monopoly nature of ensuring that everyone who wanted any kind of benefit at all had to get an Aadhaar. That Aadhaar base of identity is being used to build India's much celebrated digital public infrastructure related to finance, meaning our celebration of UPI across the world, our selling of these systems across the world. And what they hide is a horrible story of exclusions. What they hide is the fact that this is a system and infrastructure that has been built upon forcing people to enter it. And only on the back of that base and foundation has the rest of that infrastructure that actually benefits the affluent and they can use with facility. That is the cost they are paying. Today, if someone does not have an Aadhaar, and there are still people, and we have been sending lists, there is no way they can get any kind of social security benefit. They, in fact, cannot even get employment benefits and payments in things like NREGA. And as a result, the lower bureaucracy that is unable to either get them into the system or use biometric authentication because the elderly and the working population's biometrics don't work, they are inevitably cancelled off for some false reason or the other. In the case of Social Security pensions, we found in Rajasthan 13 lakh people were cancelled, and we found thousands of them, large numbers and percentages of them were falsely cancelled as being dead when they were alive, of being out of state when they were very much in the state, of being not male or female, or data mismatches. And data mismatches is another very, very scary part of the Aadhaar system, is that even if one letter in your alphabet changes, and that has changed for Indian populations, somewhere a sing can be said written in one way with a GH, somewhere it can be written with just a G, or in Hindi. There are various things between a chuni and a chuna in just one kind of alphabet. As a result, you are forever trying to clean all your databases together, and that is the database. If you don't have that clean, you are unable to get authentication. Worst of all is that all the payments that are made then go to the bank and have to be put onto an Aadhaar based payment system. So the bank needs you to link it with your job card or with your pension ID. Then it needs you to come on the NPCI tracker. And then you need to go through this again very taxing system for the poor, which is KYC on a regular basis. As a result, lakhs of people are running from pillar to post in banks that have no time for them, not realizing why their pensions or their payments are stopped. And the end result is that they are marked as dead, or their job cards are cancelled with some frivolous reason of not willing to work, whereas they are desperate to work. And we have a criminal system that is supposed to provide identity and inclusion, but which is actually excluding huge people with no consequences. And if India is to make its digital public infrastructure and make its direct benefit transfer useful, it has to provide credible, immediate, useful alternatives. The bypass systems that they keep passing off as that they are not excluding anyone actually are so tedious and so difficult that it is almost impossible for anyone to work at it. We have proved this. We have taken people to the national capital, to the state capital, and it is clear that today, when they are combining this with AI to actually, another objective of their entire Aadhaar project was to reduce corruption. They are using in many states what they're calling 360-degree, just looking at data. And one third of the pension beneficiaries in Telangana have been removed. In Rajasthan, they have not used that system as such, but in states like Haryana as well. And we see that when these digital systems are used, because they consider a data mismatch also a reason to remove, they consider all kinds of things a reason to remove, we are actually killing people off from their entitlement. And so this is a very important separate thing that applies right across the board for social security. And it is something that within the budget, while we celebrate it and talk about it, and unfortunately, no one in our parliament pays any more than occasional attention to it. Both the UPA, which brought in Aadhaar to begin with, and the NDA, which has taken it to multiply higher levels, have a collusion between the state and the corporate financial institutions to take this to be able to transfer money easily and increase flow of money even through debt without concern for the people's entitlements and their right to get money, take out money from their banks, and transact uh, their daily lives with ease. Over all these years, there are various social movements that have made it clear, people who work with the elderly, with the disabled, with widows, with other vulnerable sections of our society, that pensions is not a dole, it is a right. It is a right of the working people of India who are contributing towards making the economy. You are already exploiting them while they're at work. Now you're exploiting them and actually driving them to destitution when they're in their elderly lives. We have seen many states who have provided an alternative from their own resources. In the state of Rajasthan, for instance, a law was passed where a pension amount of 500, where the state government was already contributing, was increased on its own to 1,000 rupees with a 15% increment per year so that it would reach some level of dignity. The number of pensioners in the state were 14 lakhs. But when this law was brought in and it was universal rights were given to those who deserve it, the number went up almost 9 times to 1 crore. The result is that the Rajasthan government spends more than 10,000 crores on pensions. And the center's share in this, which according to the centrally sponsored scheme should be half, is actually 300, a miserly 300 crores. So what should the central government do if it has any concern at all for this segment of the population, for the elderly who we call our senior citizens, including farmers, by the way, who have worked all their lives on their fields, or farm labor who have worked all their lives on their fields? The Pension Parishad, which is a group of unorganized sector, elderly and other pensioners, have demanded that pension should be half of minimum wage. And the logic behind that is that everyone pays half of the last salary as pensions. So that minimum is minimum wage. Now, even if you take today's low minimum wages, that would work out to 125 rupees per day at half of minimum wage, and would come to a burden of about 2,000 rupees per month that would have to be paid as pension to from the central government as half of the share. The total burden would come to what would seem very high at around 1.2 lakh crores if all the deserving people in the lowest percentile of our population, those who are considered in the poorer segment of our society, who are dependent on pensions for living, it would mean 1.2 lakh crores. Now, this may seem like a lot compared to the 9,000 crores that exists today. But if you see, if one state like Rajasthan can put aside 10,000 crores almost, then the central government certainly can. The central government is putting aside for pensions for 4% of central government employees, a total of almost 85,000 crores. And for the rest of the population, the entire elderly population who need pensions, they are putting only 1/10 of that amount. So money has to be found. Money can be found, and if the central government were to do that, then states like Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, who have also universalized their pensions, or Haryana, or Goa, or Delhi, would be able to comfortably, and all states would be able to comfortably put some amount of themselves. And the elderly people all across the country would be able to get a pension of roughly 4,000 rupees a month. Only half the burden is on the central government. It must act. And if it doesn't, the poor, those who are being driven to destitution have very little voice, but they have a vote. They have started to make their vote felt, their voice felt during the time of elections and state elections. They have to now nationally make sure that this BJP government that has done nothing at all for pensioners is made to pay the price if it does not substantially address their concerns.